وخمار شوي area crossroads.
Artinius, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest episodes of Walk the Crossroads. This is Patrick OC, aka Shadowed Sin, here in Oxford. Tonight we're going to be discussing the technology of Avalon, the various technologies that exist, and this will be a general overview, which will then lead into a more complicated discussion of the specific technologies that are currently existent within the lore. Now, to quickly apologize, we still do not have my special microphone. It's not working, so this is being, again, openly recorded on the small computer that I have that is known as Lock. Alright, let's begin. So, in general, the technologies of Avalon vary in their capability and their cost. Power throughout the Avalon Cluster resolves itself upon an ancient form of fusion known as the AFD, or the AM Flux Drive, a reactor design which was pioneered in the early eras and came to dominate power throughout the three systems. Biotechnology is so advanced it allows the mass production of nigh Faranoid creatures, the soul given, and the ability to manufacture biosense dolls known as doppelgangers, and much more. Let's quickly talk about propulsion. At the center of power sources in the Avalon Cluster is the Ion Flux Drive, an advanced fusion reactor that mixes ionic technology with collected energy from solar sails. The result is a powerful reaction that on planets and colonies provides bursts of clean energy with the threat of radiation only being as null as the long central shielding is maintained. AFDs are very fragile. They're often required careful attention, and the people who manage these is a long, half-dead guild known as the Arcaneers. They're often found primarily in colony sectors and aboard ships. When they're in transit, they are along the grav currents of the Sea of Stars. They must be turned off, and this is where we get this kind of concept in starships between the sail shift and the fusion shift. We'll get more into that when we discuss starships in general. Travel across the Avalon Cluster, specifically in planets, is often done by maglev trains, which will then charge at primarily local AFD reactors, and then also smaller flying craft and ground craft. Starships in general are very interesting. They're found inside the colonies, which are conducted by smaller shuttles, and then the larger ones, which are powered by solar sails. Smaller ships often lack sails and are often powered by AFD thrusters, which require constant charging from central ships or stations. The larger ships, which actually do have solar sails, can gather energy and then can create a velocity also by catching gravimetric currents. They can then maneuver thrusters various aspects. The thing to note, though, is the method of propulsion has led to overall aesthetic feel among spacecraft, leading to them to appear slightly like ancient galleys of Arun in Alicite design. They also can look kind of like small arrowheads. How do I put this? The starships in the Avalon Cluster are often very stylistic because they're expensive and the nobility want to show off their expenses in general. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about materials and resources. The AFD reactor solved the issue of energy many years ago, which is time free the economical power of the Avalon Cluster to seek out other avenues of profit. The primary form of this is through the creation of building and production material for all uses across the triad. Many are common use materials such as plasteel, a plastic so hard it's almost like steel, to advanced ceramic composites, which are often used in armor, and defensive materials such as grey Ada, a thick energy absorbing metal. Here are some very basics. We have plasteel, which is a form of composite plastic that's harder than steel and used in construction of most vehicles. Then you have grey Ada, which is a energy absorption material found in power station creation and defensive armor for starships, power armor, and chevaliers. Then there's song steel, which is a specific form of plasteel which can oscillate at high speeds and also allows for supersonic communication and is used specifically in singing weapons, such as the singing blades. Rare forms include soul metal, which is a rare crystalline material found in various locations in deep space or select planets. Soul metal is used in the creation of tech implants, soul bonds, and other neural interface technologies. Sorry guys, a bit tired, still recovering from the Frankfurt Book Fair. Abyssal stone, which is used to create black ichor, which then allows for the return walking process to bring back the dead and keep the Erashic race alive. Okay, I know we're moving a bit fast here. It's a little late, so I'm kind of just doing a speedy overview for you guys, but I hope you guys can follow along. Let's talk a little bit about information technology, which is one of the more advanced forms of tech and one of the more signature forms of tech found here. Information in the triad is primarily passed across the vast network of interconnected relays and satellites known as the SysNet, or the Inter-Systems Network, a vast digital network of information that can process information at high speeds and even allow users to directly interact with software and users alike. Advanced cybernetics allow users to switch biosynth bodies at a whim and allow minds to be transferred into completely new bodies. Let's talk a little bit about the systems network. Okay, so the system was created from the original network minds of 1,000 recycled homunculi individuals. The system of mass transfers was then further advanced with the invention of hypersonic relays, which can transfer laser messages and yet information locally on a vast array of bandwidths. The basic interface of the SysNet is through an eyesight heads-up display from a small eye-level device called a personal network display, or PND. Some users, however, opt for a clear PLAS-style personal admin display, or PAD. The SysNet is then compiled into a series of virtual networks, or VNs, which allow for the mass transmitting of information in messages or images over a long distance time. Most of these VN channels come under a variety of codifications, from military to civilian grade clearances. Most information is passed through the usage of small voice calls or through physically typed or stylus written messages. Let's talk now about cybernetics. Cybernetics include a variety of complicated technologies based upon the interface of mind and machine. The most well used are the hollow eye, to directly and virtually interface with the SysNet. These technologies form a direct link with the mind and allow virtual self, or psi-soul, to drift within the depths of the cyber realm. Other applications include the advanced prosthetics used to replace missing limbs, or in case of the Arashi, parts of their entire bodies. The most advanced level of cybernetic interface is the puppeteer, which allows for truly fantastic abilities. Puppeteers basically allow you to transfer your consciousness or your psi-soul into another body and then back. It's very expensive, and only certain members of the nobility and the guilds have access to it. Okay, now the thing we're going to note here is that in the Avalon Cluster specifically, we have what is known as created intelligence, or CI. The thing here is that CI is different than artificial, because in the Avalon Cluster, or in the World of Land the Stars, artificial intelligence is when when you copy an existing intelligence and let it evolve naturally, or an intelligence is captured inside of the cyber realm. Okay, so basically a psi-soul becomes a psi-rad, which is someone who is trapped forever in the SysNet. That is artificial because they exist outside of the organic. That is how the Pharaoh define it. Created intelligence is specifically to two forms of intelligence, which are virtual intelligences, which are pre-programmed cyber persona that has set limits. They cannot learn, they cannot expand beyond their base subroutines. VRs are only often found in general hollow interface, HV, form, or in layman's terms, a hollow body. They're mostly used in hologames found in SysNet, or running complex systems such as administration programs, and they're generally made in mass. The more complicated versions are synthetic intelligence, or SI, and this is the basis of the soul given. SI, they all start with kind of a base program, but over time they evolve and become their own unique individuals. Alright, we're now going to talk about technology specifically for biotechnology. And again, guys, I know we're moving very quickly, but we'll have more in the future as we discuss things specifically. So biotechnology within how this is basically, it's kind of a super science and can often seem to pass the limits of the creation itself. However, there are several detrimental flaws within Avalonic tech that limits the capabilities of various applications. The first of which are the powerful guilds, which often lead to limitations on who and what can access said technology. The most advantage of which is the creation of synthetic life that falls under the purview of the Meister's Guild, and the application of neo-alchemy, or tightly contained by the Alchemist Guild. Okay. Medical technology in Triad can be taxing and quick depending upon one's status and membership within the Estates General. Healing of basic surface wounds is often taken only as liniment, made from concoction of regenerate nanites and burn salves. It was whatever. Basically, liniment is kind of like this thing that you put on. It's like this mixture of nanites and salves that you put on the wound, and it heals it up very quickly. About twofold, and quickly stop blood. Blood transfusions are easy because plasma is pretty much cloned in mass. So let's talk a little bit about some basic technologies. Again, you have liniment, which is a regenerative solve and lotion found in most places, which can heal cuts, bruises, and second-degree burns with daily application within about 2 days. And to note, if it's a small cut, it will heal even faster. It heals twice as fast as normal. It doesn't seem super impressive, but if you really think about it, you can get shot and it can pretty much keep you from dying on the spot. Clone plasma, mass-produced neural type plasma, which can be used in blood transfusion, so it's neutral. Nanite therapy, again, this is something a little bit specific. High-ranking commons in clergy and easily nobility. Nanite therapy can fix minor genetic defects and can result in serious side effects such as sterility, and also deal with most basic common diseases within about 3 days. So again, nanite therapy is a real easy way to, if you have something that is going to make you look bad when you're going to a party, you get it and you can usually get solved within 3 days. More serious healing technologies include the Psi Coffin, which is a strangely named device filled with nanite-infused gel and robotic arms that can perform surgery, often used for heavily injured individuals who cannot be healed by an active alchemist, often requires a day of usage, and does not allow for the ability to feed the victim. Basically, you go in, you get no food. It's a little strange, but I think it's because all the machinery is focused on keeping you from dying from horrible injuries. Cybernetic prosthetics replacement pieces, arms, legs, or even genitalia. The cybernetic prosthetics are often used by those who cannot heal their bodies, even with a heavy bit of cloned organs or flesh, even including synthetic organs. Cloned flesh organs, they're only available to members of the nobility and select clergy with payments. Basically, you give it to the local alchemists. You have clone bodies created for extreme cases, incredibly expensive, really only given to those who call on a serious favor from the Alchemist Guild. So let's talk a little bit about terraforming. The advent of colonization and exoplanetary colonization led to basically space and exoplanetary led to the vast advancement in terraforming and agricultural technology. A small sound revolution as the old megacorps of old steadily pushed for the ability to modify plants, even animals, to fit the new atmosphere of the colonies. The idea of changing to suit the new life became ingrained even as the colonists themselves, which some led to physical and racial diversification of the Pharaoh during the early eras of the expansion era. Subsistence technology within Triad often relies upon a series of carefully genetically planned species of plants and animals. Most of these are even tested through normal breeding to fit the home climate and ecology of the colonies. This in turn has led to a mass diversification of farm techniques across the Triad in general. Most mass populations are facilitated by which are basically are fed foods from the lesser populated worlds and special greenhouse colonies known as agri-colonies. Large urban centers often rely upon agri-colonies for subsistence. Small worlds can easily subsist off hunting and even small-scale farming. Farming in that regard and even minor instances of terraforming often require the usage of synth drones. These strange little flying devices are able to manage local weather movements and even climate to a certain degree. Usually harvesting is then done in mass by soul-given or drone-based workers. Modern terraforming usually only exists in the form of occasional weather control and the management of water levels on certain planets. Most Pharaoh have adapted their environment so well that it is commonly held ideal to avoid mass terraforming as they once used in the expansion era. So you don't change the desert planet just because it's inconvenience. You adapt and you learn to live in the desert. It's a belief held incredibly in high regard by the world born. Let's talk about weapons. So this is the part some of you guys are really interested in and some of you just don't care about because you're not going to be a weapons person. But if you want to be killing things or to hurt people, here's what you need to know. Weapons available to those in the Avalon is vast and terrible. The weapon list is vast and terrible, and it's terrible for a reason, because the Pharaoh are horrible people. The simplest weapon is split between a variety of weapons. The simplest weapon is split between a variety of weapons from a simple club to arms that are far more complicated. Blade weapons such as swords, axes, even spears are still available to most. However, it is variants of these weapons which provide devastation to the enemies of the armies of the Triad. So here's some basic weapons. Singing weapons, which are high oscillating blades that emit a ringing whine as they activate. Singing weapons can slice through most material if enough strength is applied. They cannot cut through side shields, however. Shock weapons. A strange named after a man named Wilfred Shock. The shock weapons charged with a mind-numbing charge of electricity. They can also disable machinery and soul given with a proper burst. Gauss weapons. A gun capable of firing supersonic flechettes at high speed. come in a variety of styles from handguns to rifles. Basically, really, really small, flat little blades, and they just rip through you. Pulse bow. High-tech bow weapons including longbows and crossbows, usually used by assassins and skilled marksmen. Rare weapons include the Soul Singer, a singing weapon made with soul metal, and it can also channel psi abilities. Soul Singers are often known as decks, and they are only used by errants. Nanoweapons and missiles that shoot exploding nanite ordnance can be used in a variety of ways and methods. These are used by the Nano Slinger, which is a pretty nasty specialty that is specific to, I believe, the Arashi. Yeah, the Arashi. Of course, the Arashi invented that shit. Then you have meta weapons, which are used limited tech, and they're used specifically by the Imperial adjutants. So, like the basically, if you guys remember from the Soul Given lore, these were the strange little modified Soul Given that somehow exist as like ancient knights that are doing something for the Imperial bureaucracy. Heavy weapons include beam weapons. They're only found on tanks, chevaliers, and large-scale starships, and they require a lot of energy. Railguns, which are often more common forms of heavy guns, are used by fightercraft, tanks, and chevaliers. So here's some basics on defensive measures. You have body armor made from either plasteel or gray Auda. Psi shield, and which is an item only available to Genics, and select few nobles who can afford a meta shield, can deflect fast-moving projectiles, and attack implements have limited usage. And there's Carapace armor. Power armor invented by the Arashi and used minor AFD active powers core, increased strength and durability, often found layers of defensive plating. Combat vehicles can be a little bit more interesting. They often include walkers or small mecha. If you note, they're not really going to be called mecha. You have small walkers, you have small tanks, and then you have often a form of space force or atmospheric combat. When it comes to spacecraft in general, there are many classifications of naval starships, which include the various ships of the line, destroyers, and smaller strike craft, such as the war cruiser. Each has its own strength and weakness, and often a variation employed by the houses that order it. Most shipyards are controlled by the ruling powers of the sovereigns, and this silent gentleman's agreement has kept naval powers balanced with the triad for years. Most NDF, Naval Defense Force starships, feature heavy armoring, railguns, and usually an escort of strike craft. Fleets are not unheard of, but are usually only owned by the houses major, as few minor houses can afford to field more than a few starships in battle. Chevaliers and Mecha. Known by many names throughout the triad, the Chevaliers is a work of war as well as a work of art, coming in a variety of models and under three classifications: strike, medium, and heavy. Their name is said to come from the ancient knights of the old kingdoms of Elis. And I'm going to make a quick edit here, guys. Chevaliers do not actually come in three variants. They actually only come in two variants. They come in light and heavy. This was an old bit of lore that needs to be quickly edited, and I'm just going to make a note of this. Alright, so let's get back to it. They're all powered by a grand AFD engine known as a core and are often heavily fortified. Some engines are placed upon the back near the spine, but generally only models that use jump jets. Chevaliers are often transported by the errant on a large hovering vehicle known as a chariot, a mobile base of operations for the errant in question, and support staff for the Chevalier. Throughout the cluster, the common word for machines which share a Chevalier appearance of purpose are collectively known as mecha. Alright, so all Chevalier technology was originally reverse engineered from information stolen from the Guigara in the years before the rise of the Archer dynasty. It was the appearance of the biomechanical Jotun, massive bone and pharonoid-looking monstrosities which were piloted by the Witchmen of the Guigara. Then there are the Waka, the cloak-covered mecha which are developed from the stolen Chevalier by the founders of the Itzkachana faith. Let's talk finally a bit about entertainment and luxury. The vast wealth of the Pharaoh has provided wide and variety means of entertainment. Much of this done over the Sysnet on hologames, complex virtual reality experiences which cover a variety of Pharaoh history. Most of these are quite benign, but some can reach a level of outright hedonism. Murderous fantasies and more psychopath programs do exist, which are often locked in the darkest parts of the Sysnet itself. Some hologames can be quite competitive, leading to entire series of net games that pit the various members of younger house generations against each other. For those above the age of majority, however, participation is often considered to be childish, especially if the individual is a ruling lord or errant pilot reserved only for and there's nothing there as a typo, which I'm going to fix. More advanced forms of hologames are often used in training of soldiers or even errands. These closed military games are generally restricted to individuals in the professional guard of a ruling family. Okay. Holocasts, another form of level of entertainment, are holocasts in carefully laid shows that project across the trad or even into the reaches. Most casts are simple commentary, news, and other VN channels that are projected to hollow screens and pads on a set schedule. Others might include grand dramas of the past or common stories that are used to entertain common masses. Most civility are interested in a classical form of theater or holocaust, which are known as the Shanhish plays, or Old Way. Shanhish dramas tend to reenact the age of old feuds with the oldest line of the ruling houses. Most, if not all, written works throughout the trad are found primarily upon the Sysnet. Written literature and even private libraries are often kept in private VNs. However, the existence of Smart Ink has allowed for advanced scripture or NetScript. Many people store entire libraries in pages of the NetScript. Such books are often considered personal and are incredibly private along the same lines as a P&D. Alright everybody, I know this was a bit of a speedy cover, but we wanted to keep everything on track. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and next week we'll be back to talk and start discussing starships, which is an incredibly complex discussion, and I hope you guys are ready. So see you guys next time, and as the Amazons say, Fehen Shush.